welcome to Destination Draft Day. We have a mock draft special for you here on this glorious Monday. Nick, how are you doing?
Doing well. Allergy season here in full effect. Very hard to talk, losing my voice, but luckily you'll be doing a lot of the talking today because we have your official first round mock draft of the 2021 draft. Now that everything got shaken up, all the big trades and whatnot, how difficult was it for you to reassess here and reshuffle the deck?
Well, for the first 4 picks, maybe it wasn't as difficult for me, but as we started to go along and really start to address some of these other selections that haven't been traded for, you kind of have to weigh in. Are these teams going to address needs like we often do for these mock drafts, or are they going to go for a BPA approach, and what player fits that BPA need for them? So really, it was an interesting situation trying to get some good fits. I tried to change it up a little bit so it's not just this chalkboard type of mock draft, and hopefully, no one in the viewing audience hates it too much because I had a lot of fun with it.
I'm sure no one's gonna hate on it too much. We'll take a look at all of our listeners and viewers here today, see what they say in the chat. But we're excited. People have been asking for us for a long time, and I'm interested to see what you got. I think we have a consensus 1-2 in the draft, and after that, we'll see what happens.
Absolutely, and why don't we just get started right now? So for the first 4 picks, it's something that I have been adamantly trying to preach won't happen, and now I think I'm just sold. The first pick, Trevor Lawrence to the Jacksonville Jaguars. We know about this. The second pick, it seems like Zach Wilson has become the consensus opinion for the number 2 pick to go to the Jets. And I think it fits in terms of, the style of offense they run, the type of play style that he will bring to their team, and just overall talent. With that third pick, a lot of speculation on whether Kyle Shanahan is going to go with Trey Lance, Justin Fields, or Mac Jones. I think Trey Lance makes the most sense, especially with the idea that you're going to be bringing in Jimmy Garoppolo to stay as your starting QB for that first year. Having Trey Lance to sit behind him, I think, is absolutely the move. And with that 4th pick, I don't think this is necessarily the direction that a lot of people have agreed upon. It's the big question mark on, can you move on from Matt Ryan? But according to all the sources that I've heard, the 49ers tried to trade up with the Falcons first. And the Falcons, receiving the same trade offer, declined the trade. So that makes me think that they wouldn't want to move back because they are all in on a quarterback. And for me, that's Justin Fields. Personally, he's my QB2. As we get through some of these mock drafts, we'll start to release player positions and the rankings for that, and we'll talk about Justin Fields a little bit more. But really, with the Falcons, I think that you're getting an absolute playmaker. The big question mark is, how do you go about the end of Matt Ryan's reign in Atlanta versus wanting to embrace that new era with, your new head coach and new GM as well? So these are the first 4 picks. Obviously, the question mark is that, 3, who goes at QB right there, and then number 4 really starts to open up to the rest of the board. But Nick, we've never seen 4 QBs, 1, 2, 3, 4. Do you think this is the year that it could happen?
I don't know what the Falcons are going to do. I mean, we're definitely going to see QBs 1, 2, 3. I'm surprised. I mean, I'm not really surprised you have Trey Lance going number 3. You've been very high on him for the past 6 months. But, all indications here, from Chris Sims and the like, are that the 49ers are going to be taking Mac Jones as a 3rd pick, which to me, if they are, it's kind of a little surprising that you have to go up to 3 to get that done, because I just don't see, that he's as high on a lot of these draft boards, and we'll see where you have him going. I'm sure he's going in the first round. If I'm Atlanta, though, and, Wilson's off the board, Lawrence off the board, I'm not looking to draft Fields here. I think I'd go with Matt Ryan. Right now, it's not if you're drafting Field at the 4th pick, it's probably going to sit next year. So it's tough unless they're trying to do the Green Bay Packers strategy, which would be go ahead and make Matt Ryan the MVP again. Rick thinks they're going to trade the pick to the Patriots. Falcons get Gilmore and all those picks. Interesting.
I tell you, the idea of the Patriots trading up excites me. I would love to get, whoever falls as that QB4. But realistically, after hearing that the Falcons turned down the 49ers trade offer, it's just hard for me to think that they wouldn't do that unless they knew that they were set in on a QB. And for me, I think Fields is that option. And, talking about the potential of the 49ers pick, if they do draft Mac Jones with this number 3 pick, honestly, the move is egotistical by Kyle Shanahan. And I don't want to say that I don't think Mac Jones will succeed, especially if he's on the 49ers. I think he'll be a fine quarterback, but that doesn't make the trade up good because you could have traded up to number 6 or anywhere in that range. But we already saw the number 6 pick get traded for a lot less value. So you could have easily just moved up to number 6 and still gotten Mac Jones. So while I don't think that he would fail in San Francisco, and he may be very good, it would still be a bad move by John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan because you could have easily gotten less. You could have easily paid less for that QB that you're trying to target there at 3. So that's why I think there's no chance it will be Mac Jones. That's why I'm thinking, Trey Lance or Justin Fields makes the most sense there at 3.
I think Kyle Shanahan is fired within 3 years.
You think so? Yes. I think he's one of the best offensive minds in the game, arguably number 1. So I think it'll work out regardless. It's just, the move is definitely wagering his career, and we'll see what happens.
I mean, we'll say. I mean, they get to the Super Bowl. They were not that good last year. There were injuries. I don't see them, being so much better here that they're going to be a playoff team next year. Maybe they'll be competitive, but a lot of that last year was the great defense by Robert Saleh, who is now at the Jets. So how many coaches are going to get a 5-6 year leash here and, go to the playoffs once? I mean, I know it's a Super Bowl, but it's going to be tough. There's no pressure on him right now. I just think the way the league goes, things could fizzle out there. And I mean, this is all tough to say, but if the Rams don't win, or at least get back to the Super Bowl here with Matthew Stafford, then McVay's they're going to be pressured to get rid of McVay. He'll get a job right away, no matter what. But the Rams would have to go in that direction there, where they're going to say, "All right, we got to make a switch here," but just because it's just crazy the way the league is. There's always so much pressure to move on, and people don't really get the chance they need. They need time. But like I said, when we're talking about all the coaches being hired within 10 years, maybe there's 2 people currently in the NFL coaching that are going to be coaches still at their same team. I'm with Rick on this. He doesn't like Shanahan 28-3. He also let Matty Ice throw around the field instead of running the ball. I mean, I don't know about that, but yeah, I mean, nothing about Shanahan's offense in the big spots has impressed me.
Yeah, and I think that's a fair critique to have some issues with how the Super Bowl went for the 49ers and maybe just the blown leads that they've suffered during Shanahan's career. But I still think in terms of what he was able to accomplish, even with guys like Nick Mullins at QB, he's shown plenty of potential. So getting a hopefully superstar QB in this draft should be able to elevate him. But like you said, it's really going to be a huge risk because if this QB doesn't pan out, you could easily see him lose favor with the front office and potentially fall out of favor with his job security and lose that job. I mean, probably the best example for that is looking at Ryan Pace. The Bears built up a very good team, but they were always that QB away. And because he missed on Mitchell Trubisky, Ryan Pace is now viewed as a below-average GM that is probably going to be fired at the end of the year. Whereas if he were to have brought in Deshaun Watson or Patrick Mahomes, he would probably be getting a lot of love as one of the best GMs in the NFL. So it really is a QB-dependent league. And if you miss on that quarterback, it's going to be very tough to overcome that.
Right. I mean, like you said, this could be a big ego move moving up. We'll see who he takes. But, this year, we're assuming Garoppolo starts. Then the clock's going to start. He's going to get the next year. All right, rookie, not a rookie, but it's his first full year playing. So really, Lynch and Shanahan are tied to this pick. So they better hope they hit it well because they moved up. They gave up a lot for it. And, they're going to have 3 years to figure it out. Because as you know, then you got to figure out before that fourth year about the picking up the option for the following year. So it's going to be very interesting out there in San Francisco.
Absolutely. But let's move on to the next round, our next 4 picks. At that 5th pick, a lot of people are saying that the Bengals need to go offensive line. I think I disagree. I'm a huge fan of Sewell. Don't get me wrong. But I think Jamar Chase is the perfect pick, especially with Joe Burrow clamoring for them to get his best friend out of LSU. I think this would work out very well for the Bengals. When you look at it in terms of playing the board, these first 3 receivers are absolute studs. And then the wide receiver class kind of dips off for me. Rashad Bateman's very good. There's some sleepers that I really like. But some of the other guys that probably won't be available at their first pick in the second round, I think you can make up for with tackle talent. So getting a guy like Jamar Chase here in the first round and maybe a guy like Tevin Jenkins in the second round, you can absolutely add to your offensive line and receiving core and do very well with it. Also, adding Riley Reif, I think, says a lot for this offensive line and takes them another step. Even if you have Reif playing at guard, I still think that this offensive line is going to have a lot better protection for Joe Burrow. And, adding a day 2 pick isn't going to really kill the QB. With that 6th pick, though, Miami takes advantage of the Bengals passing on Sewell and therefore drafts Penei Sewell with the 6th pick, offensive tackle out of Oregon. Protect Tua, move Austin Jackson over to right tackle. You get this young offensive line that is now full, Penei Sewell, Erect Flowers. They need a center still, but the Robert Hunt and then Austin Jackson at right tackle, you're very much set on your offensive line, and now you just need to address the interior. I think this is a very good move for the Dolphins and really helps set that foundation to help protect Tua. And you still have you still have your second first-round pick as well. And with the 7th pick of the draft, the Lions go to Vonta Smith, wide receiver out of Detroit. That wide receiver unit needs help, and I don't think there is going to be a much safer option than Vonta Smith. Whether you have him playing on the slot or on the outside, he's going to be able to get open and get his release. Obviously, the weight concern is the big question mark about him, but he's still a very talented receiver, absolutely electric playmaker. Jared Goff needs weapons, and Devonta Smith is the answer for that. And here we go with the 5th QB in the first 8 picks. Ridiculous, honestly, but number 8, Mac Jones, quarterback out of Alabama. The Panthers have been aggressive in the QB market. They have been talking to teams that has any QB that's worth a lot of value, and they've been saying, look, what do you want for him? I don't think they're going to be able to trade up, and if Falcons are looking to trade back, they may not want to trade inside the division. So the Panthers are kind of getting the short end of the stick here. So with the 8th pick, I haven't taken Mac Jones. I don't think this is still a loss for them because I think Mac Jones is going to be a very talented quarterback. Joe Brady's definitely going to work some magic with him, and I think that with that offense, with guys like Christian McCaffrey, guys like DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, there's going to be some production in this offense, and I like Mac Jones, even though some Panther fans may feel a little disappointed with this play out. So, Nick, from these first 4 picks, I think the real highlight is the Bengals. Do you think that passing on offensive line is a legitimate option, or are you very against that and think they need to go for Sewell?
I mean, everything I've heard about Sewell is this guy's the best offensive line product in the last 10 years. So how do you not pick him? I mean, I can make the case that the Falcons should be picking him. So I think the Bengals are going to take him there. They should. Before you got to worry about Burrow throwing the ball to people, you got to worry about him having the time to throw the ball to people. He got injured last year, we saw. So I think they should go with the offensive lineman there. And if they do, I think Devontae Smith is in play for the Dolphins at 6. Tua would love to reunite with him. But the Dolphins are in a good spot here if they can get Sewell here to protect Tua. I mean, that'd be tremendous. You give them an A+ for their first round grade right there with all the trading and maneuvering. And you got to think maybe they are thinking that the Bengals are going to go offensive playmaker here, because why else would they trade back up to 6 if they, unless they knew that Sewell will be available. The Lions, they got a lot of needs, so we'll see what happens with that team. But yeah, I guess Smith or could be Waddle or whoever could come in and replace Galladay, but they really build it from the ground up. I do think there's a great chance the Lions are picking first in 2022. And for the Panthers with Mac Jones, yeah, I think we're probably going to see, 5 quarterbacks in the top 10. And I don't know if I love this fit here. I feel like the Matt Rule offense is better fit for a Teddy Bridgewater type, but I could see why people thinking Teddy Bridgewater is just a stopgap here. So if they like Mac Jones, go ahead and get him. But both of us are very happy with the way Rule coached the Panthers last year, who they didn't have their best player for the whole season in Christian McCaffrey, and Bridgewater was out hurt quite a bit as well. So they did okay with PJ Walker. So it speaks a lot to Matt Rule, and I think the Panthers are heading in the right direction. That's for sure.
Definitely agree with you. And we move on to the 9 through 12 picks. And we have our first trade of the mock. The Arizona Cardinals trade up to number 9 to select Kyle Pitts. Now, I know what you're thinking. The Cardinals absolutely need a corner, but I think that they could add Kyle Pitts to this offense and make it absolutely deadly. Talking about DeAndre Hopkins, Christian Kirk, and Kyle Pitts all in one offense. Kyler Murray threw the ball to Dan Arnold nonstop last year. And if you replace those targets with a weapon like Kyle Pitts, I think this offense becomes one of the best in the league. Obviously, signing Malcolm Butler helps the cornerback room. With Byron Murphy in the slot, I think there's definitely still one more need for that outside corner. But I think Cliff is willing to, deal with it in order to add an absolute playmaker at the tight end spot. And Kyle Pitts brings that and makes this offense take that next step. With the 10th pick, I have the Cowboys going Patrick Surtain II. PS2, I like to call him. I think he's an absolute smooth worker at the cornerback position. I think he is going to be a star at the NFL level. A lot of people maybe don't like him because he's not this super flashy athlete, but I think he's still a very good athlete, and he's just a patient type of mover, so he doesn't really, pop off the tape. But he's still very smart, very methodical, and he's going to be a successful corner in the next level. At the 11th pick, I think the Giants dip into the cornerback pool as well and go J.C. Horn, cornerback out of South Carolina. You saw what the Dolphins did last year, and I think that kind of indicates what the Giants could potentially look for as well. Getting another corner with Adoree Jackson and James Bradbury, getting J.C. Horn could absolutely make this cornerback unit unstoppable, move them all around. I think Adoree would be best in the slot. I think you have a great unit with those working pieces, and adding J.C. Horn would be absolutely huge. With the 12th pick, Kwity Paye, Howie Roseman is a big guy who likes to play the trenches. And I think Kwity Paye is someone that's going to be getting a lot more hype than a lot of mock drafts and media gives him. I think him in the top 5 isn't unfathomable. I wouldn't be surprised if the Falcons shock a lot of people by picking him. So here at 12, I think the Eagles very well could select him. Looking at what he does as an athlete and as a pass rusher, there's so much potential here for Kwity Paye. And on the Eagles, a team that really won their Super Bowl by having such a great presence off the edge, would be absolutely huge for the Eagles and really allow them to look at their edge of the future and get some young defensive pieces in there. So, Nick, the Cardinals making this big trade. What do you think of Kyle Pitts in a Cliff Kingsbury offense?
Also, I don't think offense is the problem with Cliff Kingsbury and the Cardinals, so I think they should be going defense here. But, Pitt's very talented. Some people might even have him going to the top 5. So, we'll see if they do make that trade. Whoever goes to the Cowboys, they'll be overhyped. Everyone will say they're the best disposition player in the draft. So we'll see what happens there. Now, the Giants, I'm surprised that you have them taking a cornerback here. Horn's a good player, but you mentioned Bradbury, you mentioned Adoree Jackson. The Giants last year, they only won games because of their defense. So they lose Tomlinson, and their only major issue last year was pass rush. So, I'm interested to see maybe they do take a Kwity Paye, or you've been murmuring them to Micah Parsons all year. I personally think that they should take Rashawn Slater here, the offensive tackle from Northwestern. shore up that offensive line. You cut Zietler, which was terrible. Nate Soldier is coming back. Maybe you can move him over to the right side. Have Slater move to the left side. Give some more time here for Barkley to run. Let Jones feel a little more secure. You have some more ball security there. You still have Will Hernandez there at left guard. Shane Lemieux was pretty pretty good last year. So but the offensive line for the Giants is a total disaster for the most part. So if they're not taking a pass rusher, they should go offensive line.
Yeah, and I heavily weighed the options of Rashawn Slater and Elijah Vera Tucker. I think I just kind of convinced myself that because Adoree Jackson was on a 1-year deal that they'd still be looking in the cornerback unit. And, I do agree with you that it's probably something that they look at in day 2, day 3, instead of addressing it here with an early pick. But moving on to the 13 through 16 picks of this mock. With the 13th pick, Rashawn Slater goes to the Chargers, needing some help at that left tackle spot. They've done a big job of investing in the offensive line. They need to do it one more time, though. Go get a solid tackle at left tackle, and hopefully that's Rashawn Slater to help Justin Herbert really stay a little bit more protected behind that Chargers offensive line. And with the 14th pick, Elijah Vera Tucker, interior offensive lineman for me. He played left tackle at USC, but I think he's definitely a true guard, and I think with the Minnesota Vikings, he would get to play that and be very strong in doing so. With the 15th pick, after missing out on the QB market, I have the Patriots going for Micah Parsons. Donta Hightower is most likely not going to be around for much longer. Bill loves to draft ahead. You get Micah Parsons in there, and eventually he steps in as the new Donta Hightower for that defense, and you really don't miss a beat. I really love Micah Parsons. Obviously, there's been talks that maybe the media is too high on him. There's been talks of off-field concerns as well, but I think in terms of just talent, if the Patriots have the option at Micah Parsons and, the QBs are off the board, this is a very legitimate option. And with the 16th pick, Gregory Rousseau, edge rusher out of Miami, Florida, to the Denver Broncos at number 16. There's talks that he put on a lot of weight, but today he measured in at 266 pounds. I think whether you want him as a down lineman or as an edge rusher, he can move all around. With a team that already has Bradley Chubb, I think there's definitely plenty of talent to go around in the edge room, but adding a guy like Gregory Rousseau would be absolutely huge for the Denver Broncos.
Yeah.
Nick, I was going to say, Nick, in terms of just what the Chargers showed last year with what was a, awful offensive line. Sorry to everyone that watches that's part of the Chargers offensive line. I know you're probably hurt, but Rashawn Slater would be absolutely huge. How important is it for you for the Chargers to invest and protect Justin Herbert?
Right. I mean, look how great Herbert looked last year, where he didn't have a great offensive line. So you get Slater in there and you start building that offensive line. I think Herbert and all the fans in San Diego, because there ain't too many fans in Los Angeles of the Chargers, would be happy about that. I am worried, though, about Herbert this year. A little bit of a sophomore slump because new offense. So we'll see. But you really can never go along with offensive lineman pick unless, of course, the offensive lineman ends up being a bust, like Eric Flowers or someone like that. Robert Gallery back in the day. So that's my thoughts on that. Parsons to the Patriots would be crazy because they already have such a crazy linebacking core. It'd be tough to see who actually would be able to play this year with all those linebackers. And Rousseau, he's going to be tremendous. He might lead all rookies in sacks. And him and his buddy, his teammate Jalen Phillips, they could become perhaps the first teammates since 2006 to both go in the first round, since North Carolina State had Manny Lawson and Mario Williams to go. But the first time since then with two defensive ends would go in the first round. We'll see if you have him coming up soon. But yeah, Rousseau, tremendous pick there for the Broncos at 16.
And we move on to 17 through 20. And at 17, I think this is someone that maybe the media and fans aren't as high on as the NFL probably will be, and that's Alex Leatherwood, an athletic offensive tackle that definitely has his flaws. He's definitely got a lot of room to grow, but put him with Tom Cable on the Las Vegas Raiders, and you'll see a lot of similar growth that we saw from Colton Miller. We'll see some development, we'll see some production, and in turn, I think the Raiders will have a very strong right tackle for the future. At 18, the Dolphins get the steal of the draft with a player that very likely could be their selection at number 6 in Jalen Waddle, who falls here. And really, when it comes to Waddle, the big question mark is just will he be able to stay healthy? Because the tape absolutely pops off. He's explosive. He's fast. He's, methodical. He's able to catch the ball extremely well. He's physical. He does everything right. So here at 18, even with a guy like Will Fuller, I think you don't pass on Jalen Waddle. At this point, it's just such a steal. Putting Waddle, Fuller, and Devontae Parker in the same wide receiver room, there's no excuses for Tua. And you really create a super team of an offense with all that you've added in this draft. At the 19th pick, Liam Eichenberg out of Notre Dame to the Washington football team. You add a stud left tackle. At the moment, they have Cornelius Lucas starting at the left tackle spot, and that's disappointing. I know a lot of Washington football fans probably were hoping for a guy like Mac Jones to follow this rate. I don't think it's realistic anymore. And now you look to address, whether you want to add an offensive tackle or maybe some additional linebackers. And for me, I went with offensive line and getting Eichenberg. And then at the 20th pick, Greg Newsome, cornerback out of Northwestern. Again, probably another team that was in hopes of Mac Jones slipping a little bit, but the Bears are now all in on the red rifle, and they make up for the Fuller cut by signing Greg Newsome II out of Northwestern, and you get a smart, quick-moving, long, lanky corner that is going to really make one of the better young duos in the NFL with Jalen Johnson already on the other side. I know they signed Desmond Trufant, but I don't think he is dependable long-term. So getting Newsome II here in the first, I think, is a great addition for the Bears and really helps this defense long-term to continue to find success as they search for the QB, that next GM, assuming Pace and Nagy are gone after the year. So, Nick, obviously the Raiders made some moves on the offensive line, letting go of Gabe Jackson, Rodney Hudson, Trent Brown. Do you think that this is a sign that they're all in on their young players, or do you think that this is them saying, okay, we need to go back into the draft and try to get cheaper in that way?
It's really hard to tell with the Raiders. I see Jalen Waddle here going right after the Raiders. The Raiders would take Jalen Waddle. They just keep drafting wide receivers. So, would that be the smartest move? No. Would it shock me? No. Would it shock you, Michael, if they took Waddle, if he's on the board at 17?
No, absolutely not. I wouldn't hate it at all.
All right. So that's one thing. Now, we talk about Jalen Waddle. That makes sense. Tua Waddle. Can you see a scenario where, let's say, the Dolphins take Smith at 6, they get to 18 and Waddle's on the board? Would they take both of them, or do you think it'd be just one or the other?
It's tough to say. See, the way that they added Will Fuller this offseason makes me think that they might be in on Kyle Pitts more than the Alabama wide receivers, just to add that second tight end, even though Gesicki's already very talented. But it's tough. I wouldn't say it's a bad pick at all, especially because Fuller's only on a 1-year deal. You bring in Waddle and Smith. You let them rotate a good bit in their rookie year. Hopefully, they develop at the same rate, and then, you let Fuller just go on the market, and you have 2 stud wide receivers along with Devontae Parker, who's another stud wide receiver, and you're just set. But
maybe they take Pitts. They move up. They take Pitts at 6. Keep him in Miami if he's available.
It's definitely an option. And
now, if I was a GM and you're asking me, what is like a slam dunk pick? I say, get me an offensive lineman from Notre Dame. It always works out. So Liam Eichenberg to the Washington football team would be great for the Washington football team. He'd be tremendous. We'll see if Washington ends up drafting a quarterback. I guess at this point, your big time guys are off the board, but I think Washington is in play for a quarterback here at some point. Fitzpatrick's on a 1-year deal. So, who do you have as your, your other QBs here that might get drafted in the second or third rounds? Or
Yeah, so there's always talks about guys like Kyle Trask, who has a lot of love in draft circles. I'm a little bit lower on him. I look at some of the other options, like Kellen Mond, quarterback out of Texas A&M, is one that I'm fairly high on. I think he has some inconsistency issues, and that'll be one of the biggest problems that he has to solve at the NFL, is not being the streaky passer. And, there's also guys like Davis Mills who have a lot of love, and, the potential's there. He was a sky-high recruit, and in a Stanford offense that maybe limited how much downfield passing he got to do compared to his actual arm talent. So, there's plenty of options in day 2, day 3 that Washington, Chicago, New England could all pursue if they're interested. And it really just comes down to landing spot and development on the coaching staff's end to really see how they pan out.
Yeah, absolutely. And Greg Newsome staying in Illinois from Northwestern to the Bears. Definitely a good pick there to keep the guy, keep him home, so to say. Bears playoff team last year. Don't forget it. So, and they're looking to be back in the playoffs. That's for sure. Andy Dalton.
Yeah, and I just want to say real quick before we move on, there was this huge 2012 draft class with guys like Andrew Luck, Robert Griffin III, Ryan Tannehill. Even Brandon Weeden was viewed as one of the higher-end QBs.
Right.
And then, you wait until the third round and you see guys like Russell Wilson. I'm not saying that drafting a Kellen Mond or a Kyle Trask is going to end up with a superstar top 3 QB in the NFL. But I am saying that just because you don't get one of the top QBs in the draft doesn't mean that you won't have one of the top QBs in hindsight. So, yes, it's frustrating to miss out on QB if you're a team like Washington or New England or Chicago. But that doesn't mean that all hope is lost. So, keep an optimistic approach and hope for the best. And, just say everyone you draft is going to be a Hall of Famer. Hopefully one of them pans out, and then you can just look like you were correct all the way.
Absolutely.
So we're going to move on to picks 21 through 24. And at 21, the Indianapolis Colts go Sam Cosmi, offensive tackle out of Texas. After an absolutely killer pro day, I think he has pretty much locked himself into the first round. And with the Indianapolis Colts working next to Quentin Nelson, that makes his job so much easier. The Colts obviously lost Anthony Costanzo, offensive tackle, and he is now retired. So getting Samuel Cosmi to fill in at left tackle would be absolutely huge. And another fill-in pick, Rashad Bateman at number 22 to the Tennessee Titans, taking over for what Corey Davis has left behind. Titans obviously have A.J. Brown, star wide receiver, but getting a second weapon in that room would be huge, and Rashad Bateman can absolutely fill in just fine. Number 23, we look at the New York Jets picking Caleb Farley, corner out of Virginia Tech. My mindset behind this is the Jets already got their star QB of the class. So missing on a cornerback, if, for some reason the injuries happen and he just is never able to play at full strength, you aren't going to be killed for it. So getting the potential where the ceiling is sky high, you're looking at a guy that was rated in the top 15 almost consistently in a lot of mock drafts prior to these injuries. So getting him here with the back injuries and all is risky, but at the same time, you could have a huge draft if you're bringing in hopefully your franchise QB of the future and maybe your cornerback one of the future with your 2 first-round picks. So getting Caleb Farley with 23, I think, is absolutely worth the risk, especially for a team like the Jets where you're still trying to develop your team as well as you can. With the 24th pick, another injury risk type pick, but I think it's absolutely worth it. The Steelers go with Landon Dickerson, center out of Alabama. He is an absolute beast on the offensive line. In terms of centers, I have him higher than anyone else in this class, and it's really not even that close. Dickerson is just the epitome of consistency. He's got great size, great strength. I love him in both the pass and run game in terms of how he blocks. And for the Steelers, you definitely need offensive line help after letting so many pieces go, whether it's due to free agency or retirement. So if you're the Steelers, especially with Big Ben, needing as much protection as he can get, getting Landon Dickerson at 24 is a great pick. So, Nick, obviously there's a lot of replacement-style picks in this 4-slot selection piece, but which one really sticks out to you as the highest, graded pick for you?
Yeah, I think Samuel Cosmi is he's kind of perfect for that cult culture they have building right now. We'll see what happens with Carson Wentz, of course, but definitely profiles as someone who works in that Frank Reich type of system from top to bottom. We've seen offense and defense, and this guy was a captain Texas, so that's a big deal. Now Bateman, I guess you have him as you obviously have him as your wide receiver 4. Is Rondale Moore your wide receiver 5, or is he down a little more on your list?
So personally, actually, Rashad Bateman's not my wide receiver 4. He'd probably be around wide receiver 6, wide receiver 5. I'm a big fan of Bateman, but I do think that he falls into that second, third round range. Probably second, I think, is the exact draft round that I would project for him. There's plenty of potential, but the big question is durability and size. And if a team picks him and works him well into that offense, I think he's going to be a great kind of manufactured touch type of receiver, work him in the backfield, work him out of slot, and he's going to find production. But, obviously when you're looking in that first round type of range, there's definitely higher ceilings, I think, in terms of what they can become, because you want to have wide receivers that work on the outside at best.
Mm-hmm. With the Jets here, I mean, they have so many holes. So, basically any pick should be a good pick as far as building the roster here. So you can't really fault them here. I still think they might end up taking a wide receiver in this with this selection, or if they're a tight end, or you could potentially see the Jets here, first team taking a running back. It wouldn't really surprise me too much if they take Harris here. I just think that might be their philosophy here. Dickerson, I know you have him very high, so we'll see what happens there. But obviously, replacing Pouncey is a big shoe to fill there in Pittsburgh.
Definitely. And moving on to the 25th through 28th selections, with the 25th pick, the Jacksonville Jaguars filled their free safety need with Trayvon Moehrig, one of my favorite safeties in this class. He has the range, the size, the physicality to make it work. He's a well-rounded safety, and the Jacksonville Jaguars have really done a nice job this offseason filling in their roster with a bunch of cheap and impressive additions. Now you kind of look to the future. That next offseason, I think they'll be big players, but right now they're kind of doing low-risk gambles and seeing who sticks around for the long haul. With the 26th pick, Jalen Phillips, who absolutely lit up his pro day today. If you haven't heard about it yet, definitely Google search it real quick, because he is a monster in terms of athletic testing. And working opposite on the line from Myles Garrett, I think they would be able to really wreak havoc on quarterbacks, destroy, conquer, and just set the tone for all of their defense. There's questions about the secondary. There's questions about the linebacker unit. But I think the biggest thing they need to address is getting an edge rusher opposite of Garrett, so that Garrett and that edge rusher can both be at full strength. And getting a guy like Jalen Phillips, I think, has superior upside. The question is, can he stay healthy? He's already retired once due to concussion. So maybe there's the concern there that could have him drop. But in terms of what we see on tape and what we see from just his athletic profile, there's definitely reason to believe Jalen Phillips could be a stud, and that's why I have the Browns willing to take that risk and draft him here in the first round. At pick 27, I think the Baltimore Ravens go Azeez Ojulari. I really love his versatility as an edge rusher, and I think he fits wonderfully in the Baltimore Ravens defense. Get him to both rush the passer and even drop into coverage. I think Ojulari is a phenomenal fit. He's super young, and with the loss of Matthew Judon, they need one more person to help rush the passer opposite of Tyus Bowser, and I think Ojulari does that very well. At pick 28, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, a little bit of a slip for a joke here. For the Saints, though, they are very happy to bring him in. A versatile linebacker that can drop into safety. You kind of look at what Malcolm Jenkins has done for the Saints, and while they aren't going to be playing the same spot, I think that kind of frame and physicality will absolutely shine through for the Saints, getting a young piece and hopefully star for this defense in the first round on a team that's definitely going to eventually have to make some decisions about the contracts on their roster. Bringing in a young, cheap Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, who should be a long-term starter, I think is an absolutely great get for New Orleans.
Yeah, no
Nick,
doubt about it. I think that would be a great pick there. Regan Smash, we'll get to him first. He said Phillips' pro day workout was nuts. So he could be rising up the draft boards here, Michael.
yeah, and I think that's one thing that kind of always had him in the first round for me was just I expected him to dominate the athletic testing and really start to gain some love across the draft circles. I don't know if maybe it's just a media thing or if the NFL also is now just becoming aware of it, but I do expect that he will not get much further than maybe top 40. Nick, I wanted to ask you, though, in terms of the Jaguars draft so far, and I mean Jaguars offseason so far, if you look at the roster, there's needs, but I wouldn't say there's a bunch of pressing needs. So in terms of how the Jaguars have approached this offseason, would you say that they've done a good job to set Trevor Lawrence up for success, or do you think that there could still be some early issues for him?
I think there's certainly going to be some early issues. I mean, we have a first-time NFL head coach with the quarterback with the weight of the world on his shoulders, coming in with immense pressure here to literally turn the franchise, perhaps the league around. That's a lot of pressure right there. I don't necessarily know if there's enough weapons for him on the offensive side of the ball to come out and have that immediate success. Especially coming off last year where you saw Justin Herbert just be tremendous. So the expectations for Lawrence right now are going to be sky high. Not saying he's going to have a bad rookie season, but I think it's going to be hard for him to live up to all the hype at this point.
Yeah, and I think I agree. And, I think I'm a little bit disappointed in the Jaguars offseason as well. I wouldn't say that they've done a bad job, but I think it was just underwhelming compared to what the expectations were with all the money that they had to spend, with all the money that other teams didn't have to spend. And, I'm not the biggest Urban Meyer fan for the hire. I think he's going to be a nice locker room guy, and hopefully it works out for him because I think Urban Meyer's a good coach. But I'm a little concerned about his transition to the NFL level. And so it's going to be very interesting to really see what happens with the Jaguars, especially with a QB with the caliber of talent that Trevor Lawrence has.
Absolutely.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, just say absolutely. It's a lot of stuff going on right there, right, with Trevor Lawrence and Urban Meyer.
Definitely agree. And now we look at the last 4 picks of this mock draft. At 29, the Green Bay Packers get Zaven Collins. I think linebacker is a position that they definitely need to approach. Looking at it, there's some solid options there, but they aren't really long-term starters in my eyes. Getting a guy like Zaven Collins here at 29 would be a great pick. You get someone with great size, potential versatility, and definitely some excellent coverage ability. At number 30, the Buffalo Bills take Najee Harris, running back out of Alabama. And for me, this would just be deadly. Getting Najee Harris and Josh Allen in the same backfield would be absolutely impossible to stop. It would definitely wear down defenses. Najee Harris is a phenomenal running back, but he's also a capable playmaker as a receiver. You get a weapon like that in the backfield that already has Stephon Diggs, Cole Beasley, and Emmanuel Sanders at the wide receiver unit, and this offense is just going to continue dominating the NFL. At 31, the Chiefs absolutely luck out and get Christian Darrisaw, someone who kind of dropped in this mock draft. And even if you get someone like Dylan Radins here at 31, you are still absolutely getting a stud of an offensive tackle. The Chiefs know that cutting Eric Fisher and cutting Mitchell Schwartz isn't something that is going to easily be overcome, but getting a pick early at the offensive tackle spot would be absolutely huge. So getting someone like a Dylan Radins, Christian Darrisaw, or maybe even a Tevin Jenkins would be absolutely huge for them and help Mahomes stay safe in that backfield. And then at 32, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers select Davion Nixon, a defensive lineman out of Iowa that I absolutely love. He's a capable run defender. He can cause some havoc in the pass game, and I think, you look at what the Bucs need is, and they don't really have a lot of immediate needs. So getting some youth on that defensive line that has Ndamukong Suh and William Golston right now starting at the defensive end spots, I think getting Davion Nixon, who can hopefully take over as a starter after the year maybe, I think you're adding to a rotation to keep some fresh juice on that defensive line, and then you're getting a long-term starter in the process as well. Nick, obviously no mock draft is going to be the same. If you had any gripes about this draft, what would you say your biggest one is? I know you weren't a fan of the Giants picking corner again after already getting Adoree Jackson. Anything else that also sticks out to you?
Yeah, I just don't think there's a need for the Bills to take Najee Harris the first round. I know we discussed this the other day, so a little redundant. But I just think they, like I said, they're playing for that one game, which is against the Chiefs, and I think that's why they should be going for defense there, or maybe getting another receiver or tight end at this spot, because I think they could probably still get a very high quality running back in round 2. Maybe they look to move down here or whatnot. So other than that, I mean, pretty solid draft, and no major gripes. We'll see about your big trade with the trade up if that happens.
Yeah, I feel like I'm cheating a little bit, only doing one trade in a mock draft, because there's definitely going to be more trades on draft day. So we'll see what happens. I'm sure there will be a lot of chaos, especially compared to what the consensus opinion is for a lot of these mock drafts, because with such limited games going on over the course of a COVID season, with maybe limited opportunity to really explore outside of your local area,
right,
outside of just watching tape, we could see a lot of changed draft results compared to what a lot of people maybe expect. So someone like a Marvin Wilson, who has seemed to fall off from the first round hype, could very easily still go in the first round because of a great 2019. And there's plenty of other guys that fit that mold as well. So we'll see what happens. Sadly, I don't expect my mock draft to be perfect, 32 out of 32. I know a little bit of a shock for everyone out there.
Do you think we could see a fifth quarterback taken at the end of the first round? Somebody trades up.
It'd be a 6 QB, because Mac Jones and then those top 4. But
right, so 6 QB.
I'd be shocked. I don't think so. But if someone were to pick a QB in that first round, I think the two options that maybe fit the potential requirements for it would be Kellen Mond and Davis Mills. And Davis Mills is the one that stands out to me more. I don't like him as much as a lot of people do, but I do think that he offers enough upside and intrigue to where I could see a team maybe talking themselves into the idea of drafting Davis Mills round 1, as surprising as it may be.
Interesting. Yeah, Davis Mills, shortened season last year, of course, because the Pac-12 started late. So that'd be interesting. But, you never want to draft the next Paxton Lynch. So you got to be careful sometimes. One last thing from Rick for you about the Jaguars. So you don't think Marvin Jones for Chark is good enough?
I like Marvin Jones and DJ Chark. I just think that how much money the Jaguars had compared to what the roster ended up being was a little bit disappointing. And I think that they could have went out and gotten bigger options. Maybe not at the wide receiver spot. Maybe Marvin Jones and DJ Chark is a fine unit, especially with Laviska Shenault. But, go out and add one of the higher paid tight ends. Go out and add some offensive line talent. I didn't like the idea of franchise tagging Cam Robinson. I think that the defense added a lot of pieces that maybe weren't necessarily great additions. Adding guys like Roy Robertson Harris, I don't think was going to really take your defense to the next level. And obviously, the way to success is finding those bargain deals, whether it's getting rookie contracts that are immediately contributing or getting, cheap free agents. But I do think that when you have money, it's okay to spend it a little bit, and they didn't spend it as much as I would have expected.
Rick says Belichick jumped the gun on tight ends, and who wants to be coached by Urban Meyer over Belichick?
Well, I don't think the competition is between Urban and Bill Belichick. I think the competition would be looked at as, well, do I want Trevor Lawrence thrown to me, or do I want, Cam Newton or whoever the Patriots maybe draft? So there's definitely some intrigue in a place like Jacksonville, and, the weather probably helps out as well. So there's reasons for people
no state income tax.
Love the idea. Yeah, definitely. So there's reasons for people to want to go to Jacksonville over New England, as hurtful as it may sound for New England fans like you and me.
Not about it. All right, Michael, why don't you give our listeners a little teaser about what's coming up the next few shows here from you?
Yeah, so going forward, we're going to be trying to talk about each position group that we can. We'll talk about QBs, running backs, wide receivers. We'll talk about some of the positions that have, possible sleepers. We'll talk about guys who maybe are a little bit too highly touted compared to our rankings here. I'll be sure to break it down, hopefully get you some video clips, get you some full analysis, get you some strengths, weaknesses, pro comparisons, and everything in between. Let us know as well on Twitter whether you want anything special. You can reach out to the Chris Landry account here, or you can reach out to me and Nick on Twitter as well. And really, we just look forward to talking about all things NFL draft, because that's really what we do here at Destination Draft Day, and we're about 1 month away.
Yeah, and you're not going to want to miss. I will make sure Michael gives his power rankings for long snapper, punter, and kicker.
Absolutely. We already got the top 3 ranked for each spot, so we're ready. All right, well, that's all we got for you on Destination Draft Day. Nick Durst, Michael Rochman, we appreciate everyone in the comment section. We appreciate LandryFootball.com for the platform, and we want to thank everyone checking in and just watching, maybe not commenting. Maybe speak up a little bit, all right? That's all we got for you. Enjoy your week. We'll see you Friday.